leading newspaper in America is under fire from some of its own employees for an op-ed it ran. Some reporters at the Wall Street Journal are criticizing leadership for running a column from Vice President Mike Pence that gave false information about the coronavirus pandemic. And this comes after the head of the New York Times opinion page resigned after running a column from Senator Tom Cotton that advocated using the U.S. military to counter Black Lives Matter protesters. So where is the line in publishing controversial op-eds? Joining us now is the Boston Globe's editorial page editor, Bina Venkataraman. Bina, thanks so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Liam.
The vice president's column in the Wall Street Journal had false information about how many masks and other medical supplies that the Trump administration has provided. Would you have run that column in the Boston Globe?
Now, Vice President Pence's op-ed, I think with some factual corrections, could have actually been made to be something that would be publishable. But you would still have the journalistic question of whether you want to publish it. Do you want to publish a politician's sort of form of self-justification or rationalization, particularly when, as the head of the coronavirus task force, Vice President Pence has not handled this pandemic well, nor has the president. There was not adequate supplies, including PPE. We know that from reports from states that had to compete with each other. So I think those kinds of facts really ought to have been scrutinized, and the very premise that the vice president should be able to use the Wall Street Journal's op-ed pages or any other newspaper's op-ed pages to sort of justify or rationalize the course of action should be something viewed with skepticism.
As we mentioned, these questions are plaguing the New York Times newsroom as well after they ran that column from Senator Tom Cotton calling for using the military against some of the Black Lives Matter protesters. Would the Globe have run that column?
Well, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, of course. If I can use the benefit of hindsight to say whether or not we would have published that, I'm going to say we wouldn't have published it. And the reason for that is not because I believe that we should squash views that I disagree with. I happen to disagree with the senator on this, but because it both lacked journalistic value, it had serious issues of credibility in terms of its claims about Antifa, and also it was a call for violence against the American people. Now, I think Senator Cotton had already also aired that point of view on cable television in the days before, and that point of view had already gotten the benefit of the bully pulpit of the President of the United States.
Can't you broaden that argument out and argue that editorial pages should stop running columns altogether from elected officials, be they Democrat, Republican, whatever? They hold office. They already have a lot of power. They have Twitter followings, Facebook followings. Shouldn't their opinions be left in the news section of the newspaper where they can be challenged and fact-checked by a journalist?
I think it's a reasonable question to ask whether there ought to be so many such published decrees or points of view of politicians who have the opportunity to share their views in other fora. But I do think it's important to have robust debates about what politicians believe and what kind of perspectives they're bringing. It's part of our democracy to be able to interrogate what senators of the U.S. Senate believe and think and what their policy positions are. I just think you have to look at a number of factors when you think about whether that belongs as an op-ed.
Bina Venkataraman, editorial page editor of the Boston Globe. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Liam.